Oh, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. This is the truth about ADHD. And I have to start off by saying, Tom, that if you're watching us, you probably have a child been diagnosed, or you're thinking that your child might have ADHD. And even though we're bringing you solutions, you might be on the other side of the computer screen kind of angry at us. We're just the messenger, and we want to bring you the truth so that you can actually help your child thrive in their life, and you can live, your deepest wishes as a parent, which is what we want to do. So we're talking about ADHD today, Tom. And let me just introduce Thomas really quickly. I'm Bonnie Liotta, and this is my husband, Thomas Liotta. And when we met 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, I had 3 kids diagnosed with ADHD. And one was diagnosed ADHD with oppositional defiant disorder, and I was just like you. I thought it was normal. I was being taught by the school that, look, if you don't medicate your kids, they're going to have trouble at school. They're not going to be able to relate with their friends. They're going to have trouble at home. So why don't we just prescribe them with this Concerta thing, and it'll be out of his system by dinner time. And then 2 months into it, my 12-year-old was banging his head on the counter in an absolutely, what they call it, jonesing out for a drug. It's called drug addiction is what I saw. And so thank God I met Tom. Now, when I first met Tom, he told me, I've worked with thousands of kids, and that kind of went over my head, like, who cares, kind of thing. But when I saw him interacting with my kids, and I saw that they responded happily, and they would actually listen and cooperate, I knew that he was onto something. And then he told me the clincher. He goes, Bonnie, I ran a school, after-school program, all-day summer camps, overnight trips with hundreds of kids at a time, 100 kids at a time, probably 110 maximum at a time, but thousands of kids overall, and he never used the word no or punishment or dictation to teach his students. And he could bring 105 students at a time to the mall and have them all standing directly at attention stance, paying attention, being absolutely brilliant champions. And I thought, well, why does he get to have so much fun with kids? I want to learn what he learned. And 3 years later, the school's phoned, well, actually 2 years later after implementing his program, the school phoned and said, we'd like to remove any ADHD labels from your children because they don't need the supports anymore. So that makes me really happy, but I can literally relate to the frustration and living with the knowledge that your child has ADHD for years, and to have somebody kind of come along and go, look, there's some simple solutions, and you don't need medication, and you actually can live a life of peace and happiness and joy with your kids. It might be a little upsetting, even though it's the truth.
Yes.
And I've always heard, and you've always heard, that you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And in this case, the truth will set your child free also. So Thomas is the only human being in the history of mankind that we can find, and nobody's come up to us yet to tell us otherwise.
Yeah, so far.
Yes, that has done a study with thousands of children over a nearly 20-year period, more than 18,000 hours working with kids without ever saying no. And I know I just said that, but I'm saying it again because repetition is the second law of learning, and it's a big deal, all right? Because how many times do our babies hear the word no before they're even 1 year old? 1 year old. They hear it a lot. So what are the statistics, Thomas?
Well, when you kind of look as a whole, like just say the United States, you can even Google it and you can find different colors, and they range kind of on the low end, about 7% up to about 14-15%, depending on which state. And the interesting part about statistics is, even if it's only 1%, or maybe it's at 50% of all kids as a whole, the important thing is that the number keeps growing year after year after year. Now, that's the key thing to really pay attention to, is it's not getting any better.
No.
It keeps getting worse. And so anybody can look at that and think, we better do something soon because we're headed for the cliff. And if you relate it to like driving your car, you've seen it probably on those freeways. They have those little graded things on the side of the road, and so when you veer a little bit, it goes bzzz, whole car's vibrating, right? Well, that's like a warning. And if you keep going that direction, well, you know you're going to go off the road. But these warning signs that we have are like, oh, I'm a little off the mark. We have time to correct, get back on track. and take the dis out of disorder,
yes,
remove that with another cause and effect to bring a new approach and reestablish order. And that's what I believe every parent in their heart really wakes up in the morning and go, yes, that's what it's all about.
right. And this is important for you to hear because, you know, this is about preventing and reversing ADHD. So if you're raising a 2 or 3-year-old, that could be a stage where ADHD actually begins to set in. And we're going to talk about all of the symptoms here right away, and then talk about the truth behind it. So we have written down, because there's a whole whack, if you look up ADHD symptoms, you'll find a whole page of symptoms, and I didn't want to leave any out because it goes beyond the ability to focus. It goes like this: inattention, hyperactivity, impulsiveness, easily distracted, does not follow directions, complete tasks, does not listen, forgetful, they can't organize, they can't sit still, and it goes on. I've got it on the back here. They lose things easily, they daydream, they bounce while sitting around, they talk excessively, and they interrupt others. Now the thing is if we're not going to pay attention to it now, then that's where you get adult ADHD, which is high levels of anxiety, low self-esteem, employment problems, difficulty controlling anger, impulsiveness, substance abuse, poor organization skills, chronic boredom, mood swings, procrastination, and low frustration tolerance. My goodness, that's just like a bad day. That's just like a bad day. So I'm reading all of these symptoms, and I'm wondering, how do we get here? How do we get to the point where these symptoms are causing a mental disorder to the point where they're being diagnosed with a mental disorder and then prescribed medication? And I've even met families that have their child on 8, 9, 10, 12 medications by the time they're teenagers, because every medication has a side effect. And then when the side effect comes, well, guess what? Here's another medication to do the side effect. Oh, he's not sleeping. Well, we'll give you this medication so they can sleep. Oh, they're feeling this. And then pretty soon you've got 10 or 12 medications going on for something that can be taught. And that's where you might be sitting on the other end of the computer screen going, what do you mean it can be taught? What do you mean it's my fault? And we're not here to judge you at all. I'm here as a mom going, I know what it's like to live every single day with kids that are just frustrating, right? You want to pull your hair out some days. I know what it's like to sit in my bathroom, and I'm going to cry thinking about it, because I know what it's like to sit in my bathroom and lock the door and cry because your kids are fighting and banging on the door, and pretty soon the school's phoning going, hey, your 6-year-old just threw the desk in the classroom, and we needed to evacuate. There's a problem going on. But you see, I didn't even know there was a problem. I thought it was absolutely normal. I was told about terrible 2s. I'm sure you were also. I was told about horrific 3s, and there's a new name now for 4-year-olds, and it was there was an article out the other day, and it was my forget the terrible 2s and horrific 3s. Here's my effing 4-year-old. Like, it was crazy. And so I'm thinking, gosh, parents, moms and dads, it's not normal, okay? Something's off the mark. There's some warning signals going on, and you have the ability to kind of step in and make a difference for your kids. So we're going to talk about that. Before we talk about the grandfather of ADHD and what he had to share on his deathbed, which I think is going to make you fall off your chair here today, I want to talk a little bit about how we got here. How did we get here to 2014? We're in the information age. I mean, there's more self-help books out there than ever before in the history of mankind. And how do we get to 2014, where in the last decade there's been a 41% increase in the diagnosis of ADHD? There is something called oppositional defiant disorder, which I've lived with, that's just coming about now. I mean, there's 65,000 Google searches a month for oppositional defiant disorder, and nobody knows what it is. And when you hear the explanation from Dr. Leon, who we're going to share with you in a few minutes, when you hear that, then you're going to know the same thing is true about oppositional defiant disorder, which we're going to actually talk about next week more in depth, and Asperger's syndrome, or any kind of other mental health disorder that your child might have. Depression, anxiety, any of those things can be taught. All right, so I want to explore the history of parenting. What did they used to do? Let's go back, say, 150 years ago, Tom.
Oh, hang on a second. Okay, I'm there.
Yeah. What did they do 150 years ago? How did they raise their children? Different compared to today.
Well, I think we would be looking more on, well, we're on farms. We had lots of chores to do. There was a lot of work to be done. And so many families probably had, and I believe you can probably do the research yourself too, is that they had a lot of kids, so they had more workers. And there was a lot to do as far as chores. Yeah. And the whole luxury of going to school in some kind of form or fashion really was a luxury back then.
Yep.
It wasn't some automatic. And so if we think about back then, there was always some key thing for the child to be productive and or produce in a family environment. And
yes.
That was really key back then.
It was really key. Even the 2-year-olds had chores. The 3-year-olds had chores. There was no coddling. In fact, if you were a parent in 1920, you were told that you were a bad parent if you were to kiss and coddle your baby. If we go back before 1920, corporal punishment was huge. They used to beat children with switches, lock them in closets as punishment. There's even pictures from not that long ago, just a century ago, yeah. With boys that have logs, they have logs sitting on the top of their back with their arms over the log, and they have to sit in the classroom like that all day. It's kind of called torture. But why didn't they diagnose kids with ADHD back then? What's the difference? All right.
I know back then there was a law, and you might have heard it on many levels. It was called the rule of thumb. Now, when you really think about it, you could, as the father figure or the disciplinary or the leader of any family, you could actually take a switch or a small stick that was no wider than the width of your thumb, and that could actually be used to hit, strike, or keep the family in line. So I know a lot of women back then were probably looking for men going, "Hi, you're kind of cute. Let me see your hand. Ooh, small thumb. Good catch." Right? And we laugh about it now, but back then, that's how it was.
Right. They used to stone people. I mean, we've all heard about that. They used to put, a person that did something wrong and put them in the circle, in the middle of the circle, and everybody would stand around the outside and throw stones at the person and hit them for punishment. That's just how we punish people, and we still do today. In 19 states in the United States, it's still legal to use corporal punishment in the classroom. I just wrote an article the other day about Adrian Peterson, the NFL player who beat his child so bad he had bruises and slashes all over his body, and they're going, well, that's what we do in the South. We just beat our children, all right? So are you open to an absolutely new approach or new perspective if it meant that you could help your child thrive and you can gain more peace yourself as a parent? Because this is a big question. What we're going to share with you today is not going to be if you're closed-minded and you believe everything that you've heard from the doctors and you just want to medicate your kid because maybe it's easier, then this isn't for you. This presentation is for you if you're like, I know inside that there's another answer, and I can feel with all of my heart and all of my soul that there's a better way to help my child, right? If they are not born defiant, that is a 4th century belief from St. Augustine that all children are born defiant and they need to have it disciplined and beaten out of them by the time they're 18, all right? That's from the 4th century. Now, we have to remember that only 500 years ago, it was a scientific fact that the Earth was the center of the universe. And only 1,500 years ago, it was a scientific fact that the Earth was flat. All right? So in 2014, it has become a scientific fact that if your child cannot focus or sit still, well, they have a behavior disorder or a mental disorder called ADHD, and we need to medicate them. It's just become a scientific fact, but it's off the mark. And I feel sometimes like I'm Galileo looking through the telescope going, look it, you can see right here the Earth is not the center of the universe, and nobody would even look through the telescope. So congratulations for being here today and enjoying this presentation, because it is going to be life-changing, and at the end of the presentation we're going to offer you something absolutely amazing, so you'll want to stay around to the end. But here's the problem. ADHD, when we diagnose a child with ADHD, we are looking at everything that can go wrong and what doesn't work. Well, they can't focus, so we got to fix it. They don't listen, so we got to fix it. So what doesn't work, let's fix that. It's almost like the reactive approach to poor behavior, and we talk about what does work and what you can do, a more proactive approach to teaching life skills and not looking at poor behavior at all. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, exactly. You see or observe a behavior that registers in the parent's brain from the kid that you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Yelling, not paying attention, running through the house, whatever that particular behavior is, and then we approach it with something that is punishment oriented, like spanking or hitting or verbally abusing or whatever you look at, or timeouts. These types of things are when you really follow your own guidance and go, gosh, I really don't like the feeling of having to take something away from the child. And we always approach it, well, because you're not listening to me, you're not going to do this. See, it all falls on that side of the actual equation of what doesn't work and what I can't do or I won't do.
Yeah, and no, don't. Stop it. You can't do that. Absolutely not. You didn't do this, so you don't get that. And I've seen it. You've all seen it. We've all done it. I've done it with our 1-year-olds, with our 2-year-olds, taking a glass and banging it on the glass table. It's like, no, that's bad, that's wrong, don't do that. That's where it begins. That's where it begins. And this is such huge awareness for you that are watching this. They don't know the cause of ADHD. It's written all over the internet. The cause of ADHD is unknown. And that's because nobody in the history of the world has ever worked with a kid by always telling them what they can do, what they should do. Yes, I would love for you to have that, validating our children and just picturing them as your apprentice. You're the mentor. They're the apprentice. You're 25, 35, 40 years old. You have all of this life experience. Your 1-year-old has none. Your 2-year-old has none. And so we're getting into the lesson, which is coming up in a few minutes because we're not done with this yet. But I just wanted to talk about the doctors, the PhDs, teachers, parents, the philosophers of the past have never, ever, ever done a preventative study. We belong to Parenting 2.0, and there's almost 5,000 members, and they're all parenting experts. And we have been asking for months and months, who's done a study, a preventative study for ADHD? And all we get back is it's really difficult to do. Now, Tom didn't do a study going, I'm going to study children and figure out how to stop ADHD. What he did was say that punishment is so negative, and in his martial arts training it was so negative, so that by the time he began to be a teacher, you did what?
Oh, do the opposite. It's like find out what you can do and what does work. So anytime somebody acknowledged something they wanted to do, there's usually a life skill that's missing. Because if a child knew the life skill, guess what? They would actually do it. But they are missing. They're looking for your leadership. And because you have the life experience, it's our job, our role is to teach them those life skills from us to them over the 18 years that we have them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the role that we have to step back into.
Yes.
The only reason the child's not doing what they would like to do is because they either don't know how or they really don't want to. And it's that life skill. So when they find excitement about something that they want to do, the worst thing we can do is immediately say no or don't, or you're not going to be able to do that. Now, I'm not saying give them everything that they're looking for, but what I am saying is to acknowledge what they're saying and then show them the best, safest way that a parent would make sure that that child could do it. And that's the shift. Because as soon as you keep telling anybody and everybody that's important to you, hey, I want to get a new bike. Yeah, we really can't afford that.
No, because
Okay.
I said so.
Right, or you're not old enough, or you're not big enough, or you haven't behaved this way yet. There's a whole cycle of no, 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 however you want to translate it. So by the time that you're 2 years old and all you've heard on a huge scale is so many no's versus a yes, of course you're going to be a little bit defiant. Terrible twos. You're echoing back. Every time I say something, you say no, so I'm going to start saying no back. Terrible threes, right? Terrible twos, horrific threes. And if you do it long enough, now you're going to have teenager rebellion. And I'm going to go on the record, and I'll say it again and again and again. The beautiful thing about this is that You as the parent, and there's no judgment here, you should be grateful and feel successful that you created the child's disorder. Because as soon as you accept it, we can approach it with a new way of moving forward, what they can do and what does work, and all of a sudden you can create the opposite of this whole teenager rebellion, terrible twos, and horrific threes, and effing fours.
Yeah.
Literally overnight, but it doesn't happen right away. You'll see instant success there, and as Bonnie shared, you stayed with it, made the transition, and there's no way you can convince her that this doesn't work.
Right, because I've seen it, I've lived through it. It's like, why would you listen to us? Well, because I've been where you are, and I now have what it is that you desire, and that's why you would listen to us. I mean, not just one of my kids, 3 of my kids diagnosed with ADHD. So when Tom says, you've created it, I want you to know that as human beings, we are all conditioned. You were born absolutely perfect with pure potential to be, do, and have whatever you would choose to create, and so is your child, born absolutely perfect with pure potential. Now, you were conditioned, and if you're anything like me, I had made a decision, I'm never going to yell at my kids like my mom yelled at me. I'm always going to make sure that my kids feel loved and adored, and my #1 priority is that they have a strong self-esteem, all right? And then I did take it to the other side, probably too far now, to the other side, where I was actually spoiling them and overcompensating for them. And at the same time, I'm watching Super Nanny do timeouts and set up the schedules and strict routines and very authoritative parenting style. And I didn't know any better, because that's all, before Tom, that's all we had to choose from: authoritarian, permissive, uninvolved, or authoritative. Right? And so the timeouts and the positive discipline, which doesn't feel good at all, so it's really not positive, right? If it was positive, it would feel good and joyful and like you're on track to creating something good. If it feels frustrating and causes anger and everybody's upset and stomping and crying and screaming, well, you tell me, is that positive or is that negative?
Yeah, it reminds me of every teacher would always say, 2 wrongs don't make a right. So if they're doing something that you don't like, and then you come in with something that doesn't feel good, how does 2 negatives make anything feel positive?
It doesn't, but my point is it's not your fault. It's not your fault, and it wasn't my fault, because I always thought I was a great mom. I spent time with my kids, I bought them lots of things, I made sure that they had a good life, I made all of these things that we all do in our society to raise our kids today. But when you discover what Tom teaches, it's going to rock your world. It's going to be life-changing. You get to live your day, because honestly, this is the truth. You can actually wake up in the morning and have kids that take care of themselves, get themselves breakfast, clean up after themselves, get themselves ready, and get out the door on time. Every day. You can have kids that come home and the first thing they do is do their chores, do their homework. I mean, it's like, it sounds too good to be true. It sounds like a dream of a parent, and it is the truth. And we do live it, and our clients do live this way with their kids, and we get overwhelming thank yous coming into our inbox because their life has changed. Now, does it happen overnight? No. Is it going to require some work? Yes. And like anything else, we got to begin with you, right? You are the one that's experiencing this with your children, and so we have to begin with you, which I know 99% of the time it's like, can you help me just fix my kid? Can you just do something to fix my kid? And we begin with you. We begin with the parent, which is smart, because what comes first, the parent or the kid? Well, you did, right? So that makes you in control. So I'm just looking at this list of symptoms with ADHD, and I see inattention. Is that a life skill that can be taught, Tom?
Absolutely.
How?
It's called self-control training.
Yes.
That's how simple it is. Can you think of a time that you send a child to school, and all of a sudden, if it's at kindergarten, half days, you're talking anywhere between 2 to 4 hours, depending on your definition of half day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how long has a child actually sat in a structure of school for any amount of time? And we're not talking like the turn on the movie babysitter for 2 hours or 90 minutes.
Well, that
Disney
doesn't work
movie.
either. That doesn't work either.
So a child goes into a new environment and they have to sit at their chair. Well, this is new. I think I have one of these chairs in my room, but I usually don't sit there for more than 5 minutes if they understand the time. And all of a sudden now they're supposed to be there for more than an hour without any prior training going in. There's a life skill that's missed. So if the teacher is expecting them to be able to sit still and the child's never had any prior training, so is it the parents or the teacher's responsibility to teach that? And most of the time, teachers are expecting that to already be established. So there's already one that's missing. You know, your child just doesn't really pay attention well in class. Well, let's see. Medicate them or do something like that that's two wrongs. Or maybe they're just missing that life skill called self-control. I am in control of my body and my actions. And it can be something learned as easy as walking or even feeding yourself.
It's amazing. That's amazing because in all the parenting books that I've ever read, not one of them says, hey, start self-control training with your 2 to 3-year-old, where you get them to actually sit for 10 seconds before you actually give them their meal, which means, and we've seen it, I've got it on video, I've got a under 2-year-old and a 2-year-old doing self-control training and actually sitting at the table for the first time in their lives ever for, what was it, 30 seconds? It was, I think, 30 seconds. The little toddlers just sat there for 30 seconds and waited for their dinner, and that is called self-control training. We actually get pictures. One of our clients sent us a picture the other day of her grandchild doing self-control training with the teenager from next door. So you had a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old sitting one in front of the other, just sitting doing self-control training before dinner. I thought that was really cool. And we have a 16-year-old, a nearly 15, 13, and almost 9-year-old now, and they all do 5 minutes of self-control training before dinner every day, and they just do it. And that way, when one walks by the other and pokes, well, she just poked me. Well, it doesn't happen in our house anymore, but if it were to happen, that's extra self-control training, because you got to be able to control your body and your actions, right? And so it gets really fun. And before we get into the lesson, because we're going to tell you some tips and tricks right now that you can use today with your child to see absolutely better results immediately. But we do want to share with you the truth about ADHD and what the grandfather of the disease said about it nearly 40 years ago. Because before 40 years ago, there was no ADHD. And so, Tom, would you like to have the privilege of sharing what the doctor said?
Yeah, now these are actually direct words from Dr. Leon Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to read the exact quote. He was the scientific father of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And this was in his last interview before his death.
Yeah.
He said that this is a fictitious disease. It was man-made or made up. It doesn't exist. Now, there was another doctor, Dr. Edward C. Hamlin, founding member of the Royal College of General Practitioners, and he said ADHD is a fraud intended to justify starting children on a life of drug addiction. Now, I just want to sit back and say, I'm not one way or the other, but if I'm looking at it very objectively, if the medication was a solution, then you should start to see the numbers go down. But yet they're still going up. So just something there tells me that, hey, you know, you're kind of putting a bandage on something rather than, you know, you need stitches. You're just covering up. You're sweeping a little dust underneath the carpet. It's still there, but you don't see it. And there's these warning signs. You have one on your car, and it usually pops up that goes oil or check engine or temperature or something like that. And it doesn't mean something, you know, devastating is going to happen right then. You're like, oh, something's going on. So you go to a service place, and they say, well, you need this, this, or this. Oh, gosh, that sounds like a lot of money. That's a lot of work. Yeah, I don't have time for that. Can you just, like, maybe do something? Can you just cover up that light, or can you maybe take the dash out and just remove the light bulb, put the dash back in, so that way I don't have to, like, really deal with it? Can you give me something real quick and easy? Now, let's just say that the medication is just to cover it up, so they don't act out, so they're just kind of lethargic during the day. Well, they're not acting out. Well, they're drugged. Of course they're not going to act out. So I don't see that really being objectively the best solution. Could it be a short term? I could see the logic in that. But what if there was something that the child life skill was missing and you approached it that way? That's where you're going to see things reverse from that going the wrong direction into the better direction. Because any child that has actually learned how to sit still, where they authentically have been trained, like training a muscle, to actually have self-control, that child has a whole new world of this whole hyperactivity.
Yes.
That they are just doing the best they can.
On another article, because I didn't go through this, Tom found a different version of the article, but if you just research ADHD fictitious disease, there'll be all sorts of articles about what the grandfather of the disease, in fact, what Tom just said that he said. But it also says that, yes, we can alter behavior using medication. Of course you can. But when we do that, we're not teaching the kid the life skills. So guess what? Guess what's going to happen when they're 18, 20, 25, 30, 40, for the rest of their life? See, kids are kids for this much of a window out of this much of a window. They're kids for this long, and they're adults for this long. And so when Tom first asked me, what is your role as a parent? Bonnie, what is your role as a parent? And I went, to make my kids happy? Oh, no, that's not right. It was like an immediate, like my soul just said, no, that's not right. And I said, oh, well, to buy them things and support them? No, that's not right. What is my role as a parent? What is my role as a parent, Tom?
Yeah, and if you were to just take a moment and think like, well, what is any other animal's role when they have offspring?
Wow.
Well, it seems pretty simple. There's a set of life surviving skills. There's a set of life skills that cat, deer, elephant needs to learn, because guess what? In anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 weeks, whatever the incubation of transitional time is, that particular offspring is going to be, and you guessed it, on their own. Now, we are in a society where the government or any particular law says that even a child cannot vote, that their opinion does not count until they're 18. Right. So from 0 to age 18, ultimately the parent is responsible for all their actions, all the responsibilities of everything that they do. And so if a child gets caught throwing rocks at cars at age 10, well, guess what? The police is going to find the kids, and what do? Where's your parents? It goes right on to you. So when you think about, well, I can't control my kids, right, but there's a lack of training that you know, because you want to teach them what they can do, and you have 18 years to do it. So when you really think about what is your role as a parent, well, my role is to actually teach them a set of life skills, take all of this 40-plus years of chaos that's in my head of life experience, and you're downloading it bit by bit, transferring it to the child, so they're going from I know nothing, kid brain, la-la land, to responsible, productive person in society. Just like everything in nature, we too are missing our window. And when we get back on track, the disc gets disked and everything goes right back into order.
Yeah, here's what's happening to our society. And again, this is the third time we've said it in this show, but it's not your fault. Okay, it's not your fault. You've been conditioned. We've all been conditioned. Remember what I said about the 1920s? We didn't even kiss, coddle our babies in the 1920s. And then if you fast forward to 1946, now my mom was born in 1955, so 1946 to 1955, some of those techniques would have started to hit society and humanity. Because in 1946, Dr. Spock wrote Baby and Child Care, where he taught parents to kiss and coddle and respond to your baby's every whim. And then he introduced positive discipline. So it went from kiss, coddle, respond to make them feel loved, which is where my mindset was, to disciplining them. Timeouts. He was the first one that created the naughty time, he called it, naughty time. Now, does naughty time even have a positive ring to it? Do you feel empowered, Mom and Dad? If I said, okay, you're going to naughty time right now, do you feel empowered and guided and taught a life skill? And, you know, is that going to raise your self-esteem in any way, right? And so if the answers are no, then it has to be negative. And that's what we've been taught. So for the last 70 years, 60 years, we've been taught positive discipline techniques. And, of course, still corporal punishment still exists because positive discipline doesn't work after a while, right? That's why, you know, you can do a timeout with your 5-year-old how many times before you're just like whack in the butt and put him in his room or whatever, right? Or you get to the point where you're just like walking around the house going, kids drive me crazy. I know, I'm a mom. I had 4 kids under the age of 6 all at one time. So I understand all of the frustrations that you might go through. And when I took on my role as a parent and said, oh, my role is not to make them happy and it's not to buy them things. That's not even my responsibility. My responsibility as in their life is to teach them life skills so they can have a successful life. So when my 11-year-old daughter, who's now almost 15, was stomping around the house going, you'll pay for my cell phone if you love me. If you love me, you'd pay for my phone. And she'd even hang up on me or run out of the room and slam her door. Well, I'm sure if you have an 11-year-old daughter, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? When I would just say, look, you can choose to not like me for the rest of your life, and I can accept that. But what I cannot accept is now that I know, what I cannot accept is contributing and enabling you to a mediocre life for the rest of your life. And it is so freeing to go, I'd love for you to have a cell phone. That's called a goal. What do we need to accomplish in order to make it show up for you? This is the language that Tom teaches. We have 12 modules, 12 hours worth of video and audio and books and quick to teach you the language of kid, because when you can learn to speak kid and you can learn to empower them, and we're going to give you a few tips right now, but when you can learn to empower your child by speaking their language, and it's all focused on, oh, maybe I didn't teach them how to sit still properly, or maybe I didn't teach them how to sit and read for 5 minutes at a time. Maybe I should do that. You start realizing it, that's when your life is going to change. We got to forget everything that, you know, the fictitious disease doctor has taught parents for 40 years. I'm 41 years old, so for my entire life, ADHD has been taught to parents. So you can see how we can get to believe that as the truth, and we can buy into a lie, and all of society all over the world is bought into this lie, this fictitious disease. And so let's give them some tips and tricks so they can have an amazing day with their kids today.
Yeah, absolutely. So one other key point to really lay out is, you know your role. My job is to actually transfer and teach it life skills. Mm-hmm. What a huge shift.
Yes.
Anytime a child wants a bike, well, let's see, I can either get it for them, and then usually within a week you find it outside, left in the yard, left in the rain, not put away. Why? Because they didn't have to do anything for it. It just showed up.
Yeah.
Gets stolen, give me another one. And parents usually will. But if the child goes, oh, I need to actually earn some money, or I need to actually do some chores, I need to actually do something towards it show up, mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden the child begins to go, oh, if I want another bike, or if I like a bike, Dad or Mom is teaching me how to make it happen. And once you know how to do those steps, you can have as many bikes as you like. Do you remember the first time that you actually learned how to tie your shoe? Once you got the life skill down, you can put on any type of shoe that has strings across the board. That's exciting. Mm-hmm. That's the empowerment part. And so yes. You're right. You will get them things, right, as you make the transition. But the idea is to show them what it takes to make it show up, because once again, you have an adult brain. You can go back to your childhood and remember, yeah, I remember when I was 5 and a bike showed up for my birthday.
Right.
So, cool. Next year I get another bike? Yeah. Next year, I mean, and now all of a sudden they're trained. So now they're 16, they just sit back and go, where's my car?
Mom, I want a car. Mom, I want a bike. Mom, I want a phone.
See, that's where there's no judgment here, but you have to really look in the mirror and go, I trained them to think this way.
Yep.
But if you showed them the opposite, so a child cannot fast forward into adulthood. They cannot think of, oh, I remember when I was 30, and they're 10. I remember when I was 30 and had my first kid.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. They don't even comprehend our world yet. And to know that going in, we must teach them all the things to us that is just old hat, common sense. My gosh, I learned that 20 years ago. What's your problem? That's the transition that's really, really key, is they're just missing a life skill. And that's what's so important. How can we show them how it shows up? And that's number one.
Right, and I want you to understand that my oldest child was 13 when I was introduced to Tom and Creating Champions for Life. He's now 16, almost 17. And at 13 years old, so if you're raising, like, say, 3, 4, 5-year-olds and, you know, maybe experiencing a little bit of opposition with them or defiant behavior, I want you to know that when they get to be 13, they don't outgrow it. They mature a little, but they don't outgrow it, because the minute I would say something to my 13, and even when he was 14, I would say something to him, and if he didn't like what I said, or if he lost a privilege, or he had to earn something, this is how it started. He had to earn something. Oh my Lord. And he would go on the ground and curl up in a fetal position and punch himself in the head and cry and scream until grandma or, you know, another family member would come and rescue and coddle him. All right? When I got to the point where I said, my role is to teach you life skills, it's to prepare you for life, then I allowed him to go through and have his little hissy fits, and I had no emotional attachment to it at all. And that's when he changed. That's when he finally said, after 12 months of consistency with this program, he finally one day said, it is to be, it's up to me. And you know what, Mom? You know what I realized this year? I am actually smart. Because right from grade 1, and I'm going to cry again, I'm so emotional today, all the way from grade 1 all the way to high school, this child thought he was stupid. It wasn't ADHD. He didn't need medication. He had a belief about himself that he was stupid. And I would tell him, you're so smart, you're awesome, you're this, you're that. But then when they'd go to do a task, I would step in and I would finish the job for them. Or if they would pack their own bag to go camping, I would double check the bag and make sure that they had extra socks and stuff. Those little things called overcompensating, those little things, my actions were telling my kids they were stupid, that they couldn't do things on their own, that they needed their mom, and that they weren't prepared at all. So by the time they were a teenager, they had the exact same feelings inside their heart as I did when I was a teenager. Can't talk. You take over for a minute. So,
well, do you remember very distinctive, Bonnie, that there was a point where your oldest actually said, stop buying our love?
Yeah, and that was like a dagger through the heart, because I had worked so hard to give, on purposely, deliberately creating my kids to have a good life, and I wanted them to have like all of the fancy clothes and stuff that I never had when I was a kid.
But they never earned it.
But they didn't earn it?
They didn't even know what to do to make it show up, and instinctively the child is looking at them going, okay, something's not right. I'm a kid's brain. I really can't explain it in a scientific way that an adult would understand.
Mm-hmm.
But when they start to say things intuitively like, stop buying our love. Kids are smart. You keep buying them things, they're just like, I'll take it.
Right.
But it ain't right. There's something wrong. You know, and in a child who really, when you think about the kid's brain, they're looking to you to be the superhero.
Yes.
They're looking for you to be that wonder mom. You know, the super dad, the wonder mom. That concept of like, you can make anything magically happen.
Yeah.
And could you show me those techniques or tricks? Because you make things just show up. Like, here's a bike. Here's dinner. I mean, here's new clothes. You make these things magically appear. Well, when am I going to be able to learn that magic?
Yeah.
When am I going to be able to go, I need new clothes? Boom, there they are.
Yes, doesn't money just come out of the machine when you put the card in? It's not where you get money for. Can't we just go get more money, Mom? They don't know, right? You've got to teach them. See, that's the difference from today's society to 100 years ago. They were taught work ethic. They had home and personal responsibility. They were given nothing. Kids 100 years ago were not given anything. In fact, Napoleon Hill says he didn't even own a pair of shoes until he was 12 years old. And so you can understand the mindset of today. We live in a rich society. We can go down the street and buy shoes right there. You can walk into a room and flip on a light switch. We don't have to go out and get wood anymore for the fire. We don't need to go do this and that to live, right? And so life becomes really easy. And then you and I get programmed as parents that our job is to buy them things, make them happy, make them feel loved, all of this stuff, which is just fluffy stuff that's killing our kids. We're loving our kids to death. We are the adults walking over that butterfly that's struggling to get out of the cocoon, and we are the adults cutting the cocoon open with scissors. And the butterfly comes out of that cocoon and falls to the ground, and he's crippled for the rest of his life. He walks around for the rest of the life, never able to fly on his own, never able to soar, and never able to realize his perfect, pure potential. And so when we overlove, over-coddle, over-gift, over-give to our kids, what we're authentically doing is we are not allowing their spirits to grow, to become more, to learn, to advance. And that's what I mean. We're cutting the cocoon open, and the kids are falling out of the cocoon and falling to the ground, and they're crippled, and they don't know why. They're not able to soar on their own. We want them to soar on their own. Now, there has been a lot of content in this presentation, like a ton. Like if you were to walk through or watch this again, now that your mindset is more like, oh, it's a fictitious disease. It's not even real. Now, that being said, because I've lived with ADHD, so the symptoms are real, right? But it's not a disease, it's a lack of life skills. That's the aha moment here that I want you to take away. It's not a disease, it's a lack of life skills. We need to take a educational approach with our children. So here's an example. Now this will work with a 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old. It works exactly the same. You've got the 1-year-old, and he's got a glass and he's banging it on the table. And I talked about it earlier. And our initial reaction is, you're bad, that's wrong, no, we don't do that. And if the baby picks up the glass again and bangs on the table a second time, that's when he's going to get a smack in the butt.
Or usually it's usually
or a hand.
The hand on like no or something.
Right, or the hand. He's going to get a little smack probably, and then put in a timeout or something. And this is at the age of 1. And I know this, and we work with a lot of families, okay? When did we tell that 1-year-old what he could bang? Do you see what I'm saying? You say, no, that's bad. The baby still doesn't know. He's got a need. He's developing motor skills, and he's got a need to bang something. Can he bang a wooden spoon on the couch? So this is your aha moment tip for today. This is going to help you prevent the deficit of attention, which they labeled attention deficit disorder. Because when a baby is banging a table and you just go, no, number 1, you're not validating the importance to the baby of having to bang something. Number 2, a deficit. Number 2, you're not teaching the baby what he can bang, where he can bang. Deficit. Number 3, we make the baby feel bad because he's done something that is instinctual for him to do, and then we make the baby feel bad. Deficit. Low self-esteem. I can't do it. I'm stupid. You see, the thought patterns begin in your baby from before they're even born. All right, that's the truth. The emotions that you feel, your baby feels. Your baby comes out. The emotions, the conversations that baby feels starts to implant thought patterns in that baby's brain. Before that, the baby was an absolute, didn't know nothing. If they're a spiritual being come into a physical body, the spirit forgets everything the minute it comes into a physical body. So they are actually born with a blank slate. And it's up to you to fill that blank slate with what they can do. So if you have a 13-year-old that's not eating dinner and wants to go play with the friends, it's not, you don't get to play with your friends because you didn't eat dinner, which would be 99.9% of society, how we speak to our kids. But if you were to tell that child what they can do to play with their friends, then it changes the sense. It's a razor's edge, little bit of difference.
Yeah. And this is where we begin to introduce questions versus that dictating. Because I said so. I'm the parent, you're the child, kind of a dictatorial type of relationship. Because you're right. They're doing something because they're looking for attention. Hey, look what I did, or look what I can do. They're exploring. They're like Lewis and Clark looking into uncharted territory. You want them to explore. And then you start to find things that are important to them. It's like introducing the questions. Hey, don't do that. Okay. That off. Go outside and do it. How? You know, and if they're always in a reaction mode. So you'd be like, hey, I noticed that you're running. Where is the best place to run? Indoors or outdoors? Is that an indoor-outdoor activity? You start to introduce questions versus that dictating. Hey, no running in the house. Get outside. Okay, I feel really good about myself because I really want to run outside now. Hey, you introduce that question. Hey, where's the best place? Outside. Look at you. You're pretty smart. You got the right answer. So what you're letting me know is that when you want to be outside, that's where running happens. You would never want to ever condemn them for wanting to run. Could you imagine a child that had a loud voice and they'd love to scream, yes, and yell, and you kept telling them, no, you don't do that. Stop yelling. Quit. Well, pretty soon they won't even exercise that. But you find a place for them to do the yelling. Because here's a fast forward in life. The child gets lost. What are they taught to do? Yell for help. But this child was told that yelling was bad. And the child never yells for help. Do you see how devastating? It's not a bad thing. What you're really doing is you're basically saying is, I don't want you yelling right in my ear. Or better yet, I don't want you yelling in the house. We have a yelling section. So you always show them what they can do and where's the best place to do it. You might have some teenagers that want to drive fast. No, we don't do that. If you drive fast, we're going to take the car away.
Right.
No, it's not like that. I would love for you to drive fast. Let's find a place where people drive fast. There might be a race course or a racing driving school that allows them to do it. Because when you start to always say no, you're going to start creating a wedge between you and your child.
Yeah.
They're going to do it with or without you when you really think about it. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, they're going to learn it somewhere. Would you like them to learn it from you or from some other outside source? They will learn about it. And so when you can be there to guide them the best way that's safe, then the parent's doing their job and the child still gets to explore, a complete win-win. And that's just by introducing questions versus dictating. And that's number 2.
Oh, it's so awesome because it works with your 3-year-old and it works for your 16-year-olds too. Jacob, where's the best place for your jacket? Oh, I get that. And you'll just come get it and put it away. Where I used to go, put your jacket away, put your jacket away. Hey, which way? I asked you 5 times to put your jacket away, and then it becomes really frustrating. I promise you, this is speaking the language of kid, right? So Tom developed a dialogue, like I said in the beginning, over 18,000 hours working with thousands of kids without ever using no. In the beginning, it's like you didn't know how to do that in the beginning, right?
Not a clue. I didn't even know how it was going to happen.
Okay,
I just knew why.
Tell them what you noticed when you started your school and you had 30 or 40 kids running around your dojo, and you had, because most people would be like, oh my gosh, there's 40 kids running around. Hey, can I get you to come sit over here? All right, time to be quiet. All right, little Timmy, come sit over here, and can you put your, and this is kind of how it would go. So how did you get all of the kids to sit at attention stamp? And I've seen his class, I've seen children diagnosed with ODD, ADD. I've seen his class all sit at attention stands for 20, maybe even 30 minutes at a time.
Yeah, they're all looking for attention. See, that's that key word, ADD, attention deficit. Everybody's looking for attention. And when you really get down to it, a baby that's born that gets no attention within its first week of birth, guess what happens? They die. Attention is something that's inherited. It's everything we need. And so by us denying that attention, of course it's going to lead into a disorder. So you had some of the kids sitting really well. Most of them were running around. They're all looking for attention. Now if you get yelled at, hey, I got attention. I sat really good. Nobody said anything. But I'm hungry for attention. I guess I'll run around because I want attention.
Right.
But the ones that are sitting down, That's who you selectively give your attention to. It's like money. You're handing out a currency. And they're like, yes, yes, this is great. And they sit good, and you're like, wow, you know, I really love little Richard here. Look at you. You're sitting so good. You came into class. Legs are crisscross applesauce. Your back is straight. Hands are right there in your lap. Look at that good self-control. All the rest of the kids are going, but I want attention from the teacher too. And then what do? They start to do the simple cause and effect. They sit good. Look at you. I think you're on to something. And that's a really unique way to go that direction. Now here's a third and final one, so we can push this right in for you. It's beginning to let the child have 3 options. Start with 3. 3 is really a powerful number. And so when they attempt to do something, they have 1 option. It didn't work. And then an overcompensating parent would come in and do it for them. So they're really training you to do everything for them. It's too hard. Okay, I'll do it. There you go. Yeah, this is a pretty slick deal. Or, hey, I noticed that didn't work. What's 2 other things that you can attempt to do? I don't know. Right, I know you don't know, but if you had to guess, you start that learning curve. So now when they actually approach being able to go to a friend's house, or maybe be able to ride their bike to school or get to school, they have 3 different options. Well, I can actually work out a ride, I can ride my bike, or I can walk. See, they have 3 options, so when they get a, this one isn't going to work, this one, oh, but this one will, it allows them to find and turn obstacles into opportunities. It's called a life skill of problem solving, or better yet, I like to call it solution finding. How awesome is it that every parent would love their child to be able to figure things out on their own? And isn't it awesome when you can go back and watch your baby learn to take their first steps and walk for the very first time? Do you know how exciting that is? And that's the window that we carry the rest of our lives, all the way up to age 18. And we as parents have lost that passion. And when we can reignite it with everything that they're redoing, oh my gosh, everything goes from dis back to order.
Yes, yes. And my whole point in bringing up the history of the past, if you look all through the Middle Ages, children between the ages of 7 and 10 left home and worked full-time jobs. So our children are quite capable. Not only are they capable of learning how to focus, how to pay attention, how to develop organizational skills, and that irks me a little bit that that's on there, because we're not born with organizational skills. We need to be taught organizational skills. We're not born learning how to read. We need to be taught how to read. And we're not born learning to know how to focus. We need to be taught how to focus. And so all of the symptoms that go with ADHD or any child mental behavior disorder, mental disorder, look at the symptoms and then just say, okay, I can teach that. We need to start teaching that and be a little bit creative. Now, if you need help and you like what we've talked about here today, we are launching at the end of September. We're launching a 12-week mentoring program at the fraction of a cost that we sell it off of our website, and it's to help you, go to that another level as best as we possibly can. It's like, if we just gave it all to you, we would be overcompensating, and you wouldn't take it seriously. Like the 13-year-old that gets the bike every year for his birthday doesn't take it seriously, doesn't apply it. But we wanted to set up a way where we could actually work with you every week for 12 weeks. We could get you the content delivered to you, so you could have all of the modules, have access to all the modules, and also go through the coaching program with us for less than $200. So we sell it for $1,000 on our website. But we found a way that we could get you the coaching, right, for less than $200. So what we want you to do is, are you gonna? Oh, that's the wrong computer.
I would like to just share one concept so you can really grasp what we're talking about. Think of learning the language of kid. Think of like all the languages around the world, right? You got, you go to France, learn French, German, Chinese, Japanese, whatever it might be. And if you were to travel to that other country and you don't speak the language, it's going to be very frustrating to kind of communicate or maneuver or get around. You're speaking this language, they're speaking this one, and you're kind of, where's the bathroom, you know? And if you took a translator with you, and they could say, hey, donde baño? Okay, I can repeat that. Hey, I need food, and you told me what to say, and I repeated it. Then that would be something that would make total sense to go, I can do that as long as I had my translator with me. But if you learned a language of Chinese or German or French, and you were actually traveling there on your own, you could do really well. And see, that's the key. We could be your translator. Hey, what do you do when your child does this? We could be a translator and tell you what to say. But what about the next sentence that you want to interact? So you're not really learning to speak kid on your own. And that's the transition. You're going from not knowing how to speak Chinese to learning Chinese. You're not learning how to, you don't know how to speak kid yet, but when you learn the language of kid, all of a sudden the whole world shifts.
Yep.
And then you'll understand why Bonnie always has such a wonderful big smile on her face of going, since I've learned how to speak kid, I love traveling around the world, and kids are fun. I think I'm going to have another one.
Totally. We homeschooled for a whole year, 4 kids homeschooling while we're building our business, and it's just an incredible life, and I want that for you, and I just want you to know that you can have harmonious, joyful, happy relationships with your kids, whether they're 2 or 15 or 40. You can experience gratitude from your kids. It is true. Usually when we do radio show programs, they're like, gratitude. Oh, when do you ever see a kid feel grateful? And it's true. They'll experience gratitude. So we do have, if you're on Google Plus event page, you should be able to see our webpage where you can just schedule a 20-minute block of time. It's absolutely free. We want to make sure that if you are looking for change and you are, requiring some help and you like what we've talked about here today, we do want to make sure that we can help you in the best possible way that's right for you. And it might be just joining us every week on these free Google Hangouts. It might be just reading our articles. It might be just spending $14 and buying the ebook. And it might be spending a couple $100 and doing the whole 12-week program, just depending on your situation. Whatever is right for you is how we want to put it together for you. So thank you so much. Please join us on How to Win with Kids and Eliminate Behavior Disorders on our Facebook fan page, and post a comment about what you thought about this event here today. We really like to know how we can help serve you. Also, please send us an email, support@creatingchampionsforlife.com, with any comments, questions, or observations, and we would just love to help you help your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last thing is really think to yourself, if it was as simple as learning a language to speak kid, what level of effort would you want to put out to learn some of those key phrases? It might just be just half a dozen key phrases that you learn when you do travel to another country on how to maneuver, restaurant, bathroom. You learn some really key things, and that could be the starting point with your kids. Because as soon as you start to begin to learn and speak that language, wow, that's really where things shift.
Yeah, everything shifts. So happy parenting. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We just love empowering moms and dads and kids too. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now.